Ex Libris is a game that was released recently at Gen Con 2017. It had a lot of buzz about it. I was curious about it. I picked up my copy as soon as I could, and I'm glad that I did because I believe the game sold out at Gen Con. Ex Libris is a game set in a fantasy world in which the players take on the role of librarians, or I should say aspiring librarians, and they're trying to put together a large varied and well-organized library of books, all the kind of books that you find in a fantasy world, but not those like dark, gloomy fantasy worlds a la Song of Ice and Fire, more like a zany, humorous fantasy world. The game plays with 1 to 4 players. It is competitive, so the main thing is going to be 2 to 4 players, but there is a solitaire variant that is an actual variant. It's not just that the rules say, well, play by yourself and try to beat your previous score. No, you're trying to beat an AI, which is very simple, but pretty effective. So the players will be collecting books, trying to organize them in a combination that will score them a lot of points. The main mechanics of the game are variable player power, worker placement, and tableau building. So I like books, I like fantasy, I like the mechanics that I just mentioned. Definitely the ingredients for a delightful playable recipe were all there. Let's take a closer look at the game and let's see then how it all comes together and how it works and whether it works or not. Oh, I'm trying to be mysterious, but I can't resist. It's a good game. My conclusion is going to be very positive. So I couldn't be all like mysterious, etc. Because it's good. It's a really good game. But don't take my word for it. Not yet. Let's take a closer look at the game and then we'll come back here and talk about it more in detail. Players in the game collect and organize books that are represented by cards in this very thick deck, so much so that it suggested that you divide it into 2 roughly equal decks so it doesn't become too messy. These cards, again, represent groups of books. They have an indication here of a letter and 2 numbers. As much as possible, you should try to organize the books after you acquire them, after you shelve them, in an orderly fashion. As much as possible in alphabetical order, and then within each letter in numerical order. The number to the right of the slash tells you how many cards there are for that letter. So we have 9 cards in the deck that have the C label, 10 for B, 3 for V, and so on and so forth, and the number on the left indicates the order within that letter. So as much as possible, I should try to put the C cards after the B card, and C7 after C6, and C5 and C4, and so on and so forth. And then we have the books themselves. Now, technically, to play, all that you need is these icons. When you score, when you organize cards, that's really all that you need, but we're talking about games. So games are also about fun and pleasant moments, not just about bare necessities. What is fun is that for each icon, then you have an illustration representing the corresponding book, and each book has a title. These titles are humorous, there are references to geek and game culture, there are puns, there are parodies, they're hilarious. And the detail that went into these books is pretty impressive, because these books, based on the icons, have different topics. For example, this is the icon for fantastical fictions, this is the icon for spells and potions, this is reference text, this is for like corrupted codices, sort of like dark magic, monster manuals. And when you see the title, you'll see that the title starts with the letter indicated here, which makes sense, that is that section of the shelf, but also refers to that specific genre. For example, we said that this is monster manuals. So, well, the book under the B is Banshees and How to Banish Them. This is reference books, The Barbarian Diet. This is Dark Magic, Barbecuing with Hellfire. This is Fantastic Fictions, The Ballad of Derby Jeep Job. Monster manuals, Vicious Fishes. Get it? Victories no one was there to tell, no one was there to see. This is historical volumes. Villainous Vendettas, to me, is absolutely impressive. I'm just gonna go through some of them. You can stop the video and read the titles. It's just impressive how they managed to have each book having a title that belongs to the genre with the accurate letters, so they have to be placed on the shelves, and at the same time, also again, all this is playable. It's not just a deck of funny cards. Really impressive. So, however, let's talk about the game element of the game. Each player will control 2 generic assistants that are sent around to perform tasks, and then 1 special assistant, which comes with a card with 3 generic spots, or just say spots, where you place your assistants to perform standard actions, and then each special assistant also has a unique wooden token. This is for the witch, but then you have the snowman, the Sasquatch, the wizard, which is kind of like a ninja on my black table, the ghost, the mummy, the gelatinous cube. Everybody's favorite one is the gelatinous cube. You don't get to play the gelatinous cube very often in games. I think that's a sorely underrepresented creature. We should have more playable gelatinous cubes. The golem, the automaton, the gremlin, the bookworm, and the fire imp, each with a unique card and with a unique power. The key idea, really, the basic idea is that each turn you will assign your assistants to various available locations, and you will perform the actions that are allowed by that location. Your standard location allows you to draw 1 card or to shelve 1 card. To shelve a card means to take a card from your hand and to place it in your personal tableau. Draw a card, well, guess what it means to draw a card? Why would you even ask? That should be self-explanatory. But then we have other locations also. Now, the beginning of the game is you're setting up the game. You place the diviner's hut on the table. That is always the starting location. Plus, you draw the tiles until you have 1 per player. 3 players, that's what it looks like. And again, each location then becomes available. And just to give you a sense of what happens when you go on locations, if you go on this location, you can discard 1 or more cards, then shelve up to 2 cards from your hand. The garbage dump, oh, this is important actually. When a location has that symbol, the lightning bolt, the effect is resolved immediately as you reach the location. And the diviner's hut lets you draw a card for every assistant that you have placed, and you also take the first player token. Cards with this other symbol here are resolved after all assistants have been played, and they're resolved in numerical order, the number that you see there in the top left corner. So, after all of the immediate actions have been resolved and the assistants have been played, we resolve these actions, and the garbage dump, for example, lets us name a category of books, and then we can sort the discard pile and take any 1 card containing a book of the named category. There is a nice stack of locations, and again, I'm not gonna read them all because it would take too long. Feel free to pause the video and read the effects, and that should give you a sense of how the game plays, how you can do stuff in the game. Now, since we're talking about the turn structure, once everybody's done placing their assistants, resolving the actions, then resolving these special actions, one of these cards, the one with the lowest number, so always the diviner's hut at the beginning because it has the number 1, will go on this the board here, which is the board of permanent locations. So it goes there. The other ones are discarded, and when we draw new locations, yeah, carpe diem. Make sure you don't waste time because locations are not going to be around for long. So in this round, we play with these 3 locations, the number 16, 17, and 18. We place this one in the permanent locations. We discard these are the 2 at the end of the round, and so on and so forth. I really like this for those that worry about worker placement games, of players getting enamored always with the same strategy. You cannot do it here because the actions will be available in different orders in different games, and in different games you'll have some cards, some actions becoming permanent, and some other ones that will just be there for a little bit. Very interesting idea here. Speaking about the board, it is used to organize the cards so that you know which cards are, which actions, which locations have become permanent, but it is also a nice reminder of the various ways in which you will score points at the end of the game. And also you need to set it up a little bit at the beginning of the game. There are 6 cards, special cards with this back here, representing the each card represents a category in the game. At the beginning of the game, you shuffle these cards and you place one here, and this represents the type, the genre that is prominent in this game. The player that has the majority of books of that type will score extra points at the end of the game, and there are some points for second and third placement. Then you draw another random card for the banned books section, and in this game, actually, monster manuals, each monster manual in your play area, in your display, will count against you at the end of the game. And then we have other 2 ways of scoring points, but we'll talk about those later. So you're placing your assistants on various locations, permanent locations on the board, temporary locations, your own location, to gain and shelve cards. And as we said, there are various ways in which you should shelve them. Well, one way in which you should, which is the best one that gives you the most point, but several ways in which you can do it. The first card you put down on the table, and that's it. Ta-da! Then, as we said, you should try to respect alphabetical and numerical order. And so if I place now a C right next to a T, well, now there aren't many cards that I can place. There are no cards that I can place in between C and T, or that they should. And so now I've locked out a lot of possibilities. So I'm trying to keep my options open, and suppose that I have an H, then I'm going to put it maybe on top, and I have a C, and I'm going to put that one on top. When I place new cards in my play area, they need to be orthogonally adjacent to at least one card that was already there. And they can kind of like hand in the air a little bit. I have a C3 there, I'm going to place a C5 there, although in this game, if monster manuals are banned books, probably I will not want to do that, but just to show you how you can organize the cards. Also, you cannot go more than the 3 levels high. And here I have an H2, I will want to play it here, for example, okay, I'll put it here. And maybe here we get an L and a Q, and so on and so forth. It is allowed to put cards not in the right order, like here I have an H7 on the left on an H2. Close enough, but not quite right. And so this is just, again, kind of randomly to give you a sense of what happens during scoring. And suppose that this is what my library looks like at the end of the game, which, you know, it's entirely possible, but maybe it looks something like this. Now, at the end of the game, before you score, you need to check the alphabetical order and the numerical order. Here I have an H7, which is on the left side of an H2, so that is not good. At the end of the game, when you have cards that are not in alphabetical order, or not in numerical order, you flip them face down. And sometimes you have several options of which card or cards you can flip face down to rectify the order, to make sure that the ones that are visible are in the right order. Then we have H, I, L, we're good. We have an L6 there. And then we go to the next shelf and we have an L2. Well, for example, in this case, if I flip down the L2 or the L6, either way the order will work, because suppose I do that one, then I have I, L, Q. And if I flip this one down, again I have I, L, Q. As an example of, but one of them has to be flipped face down. I suppose I do this one. And then we have Q and T, so we're good. So every player checks the order to make sure that the cards that are face up are all in the right order. Then you score points for shelf stability. That is pretty much you earn 1 point for each card which is in your bookshelf that is in the largest stable group of cards. That is the largest possible rectangle starting from the bottom. In this case, for example, the largest rectangle that I can quote-unquote draw with my cards based on the bottom is this one. Say these there, but are not very stable. So basically I would score 9 points for these cards. If I have another card here, now the largest rectangle that I can draw, or they can demonstrate that I have, that includes the bottom row, is 4 by 3. So now that would be 12 points. Large, stable shelf gives me points. Prominent works, again, the card that we saw there at the beginning of the game, if I had the majority, in this case would be of corrupted codices, I don't have many of those, that if I'm to play with the majority, I score 15 points, second player 9 points, third player 4 points. Banned books, I lose a point for each icon in the banned book category, which I have a ton this time. Categorical variety. The game encourages me to have as many categories as possible. So basically, after I count how many icons I have in each category, I look at the category in which I have the least icons. Suppose that I have 10 icons in each category, but I only have 5 in this category, then the category with the least would be the 5, and I score 3 points for each card in the category in which I have the least. So that encourages me to have a little bit of everything, so that even my least represented category is still kind of good. Something important also, at the beginning of the game, each player receives one of these cards. They're from the same deck from which we produced the prominent books and the banned books. Each player receives one of the remaining ones and places it face down next to under their board in the focus area. As a reminder, at the end of the game, you reveal this card and you score 2 victory points for each icon that you have in that category. That is secret, but after a while you look at what players become obsessed with, what they're desperately trying to get, and you figure out what is the special, the quote-unquote secret target that they are trying to achieve. And that is important because, of course, then you're trying to deny those icons to them and to try to prevent them from getting that icon. I like this game a lot. Starting from the components, the first time that you have a look at those cards, as you say, they have a closer look at the cards. When you look at them, they look perfectly nice and functional, but when you start reading those titles, you realize how much care, how much love for the detail was in the game. Luckily enough, of course, it wasn't just that there was love that was poured into the appearance of the components, but also in gameplay. Because gameplay is very solid, it works very well, it's a well-oiled engine that combines mechanics that we know fairly well, such as worker placement, tableau building, but adds a couple of twists. I would say that presents him in a way that feels fresh and engaging. I like the fact that the worker placement, you cannot always place your people in the same areas, because those will change throughout the game, and that also means they will change from game to game. There is interaction, yes. Now, there can be a level of interaction in the fact that you're trying to take icons that you know an opponent wants, and it's perfectly possible, especially at low count of players. But then your actions are so precious, actions to take cards and to shell cards are so precious that I don't think it'll happen very often. It'll go out of your way to get a card just so that the opponent doesn't get it, unless it's a card that also benefits you in some other ways. However, there is interaction, more direct interaction, in the timing of the actions, in blocking certain actions, in simply blocking certain slots by going in special tiles and taking actions, and then the opponent cannot take those actions. There are also other actions, I don't want to spoil them to you, in which is good to go first, and other actions in which is better to go last, and so that's also interesting because taking the first player token is usually a good thing, unless there's certain circumstances that prevent it from being so. And this is something that I like about the game. Nothing really is absolute. Everything is relative to the situation, because a certain action may be particularly good now, but then the available locations change and then is not nearly as good. A certain letter may be great right now, And there's another one, a card with a certain letter that seems terrible, but then I think a little bit about it, I use a game effect, I swap something, and now that card that seemed useless has become very, very powerful, has allowed me to create some combos that will score me a lot. There's a sense of fluctuation, a sense of organized chaos, which captures the theme, a library. What's a better combination of order and mystery and chaos than a library? So definitely I like this fact that you're navigating this maze of possibilities, so many icons, so many things. And in fact, the only negative that I can see here, which is a potential negative, not intrinsic to the design, is analysis paralysis. I see how it's totally possible that certain players really want to take into account everything that can possibly happen, and they're counting all of the icons that they have every time to make sure that the one that they had the least, they're adding one to that one, and they're increasing that one. If you obsess about the variety, if you obsess about ways of maximizing the tableau, it can get pretty, I guess it can get pretty annoying. I didn't experience that. One thing I can think about, well, this game provides its own entertainment while your opponent is there obsessing over all the possibilities of the game. You can read the titles on the cards and you can chat about them and joke about the titles on the box with other players. There is that advantage there. But in general, I think that the potential for analysis paralysis is there. It's up to you. It's up to you. The way I play it is not optimal, but I enjoy playing it. I play it sort of like a Zen way. I don't really count the icons exactly. I have a look at them, which is often inaccurate, but that's the way I play it. I prefer to see the game moving than to take it as homework and get an A+ in my mind because I played the perfect game. To me, the perfect game is a game where I had fun, and I definitely had fun playing Ex Libris. I would recommend playing again with players that are there for the experience, that want to use strategy, but they don't want to be too obsessive about it, and they're not prone to analysis paralysis. We talked, I mentioned the Solitaire variant at the beginning. It's a very simple idea. Basically, there are a couple of different things. You only use certain tiles, you only use certain characters, you have an extra helper, and you're taking your turn, and basically the AI is the discard pile. You discard a certain number of cards from the main deck at the beginning of the game, then other cards will end up in the discard pile, of course, simply through game effects, and at the end the AI scores all the cards that are in the discard pile. So it's interesting because it's a very simple idea, but still there is some strategy there as I'm trying to load the discard pile with all of the banned books, and I'm trying to prevent the discard pile from getting the prominent books that will score more points. It's a simple idea. I don't know there will be many players that will buy this mainly for that, but since you have it, it's a nice bonus because you can still play Ex Libris. Not as exciting as with the multiplayer, but you can still play when no one is around, which, you know, maybe better than not playing Ex Libris at all, because this game is really good. It's really solid from the point of view of the production, gameplay. It's a game that looks great. Gameplay is really fun and exciting. Again, as long as you do not obsess about it, you kind of like go with the flow, you will not be able to score the maximum number of points in all categories, which again, to me is part of the beauty. Then you can prioritize one thing over another in different games. You can switch strategies. You can keep one strategy sort of like in the back of your mind. At some point I need to have a stable shelf while you're making more tactical decisions. At all levels, it is gameplay that is very exciting, it's very fun, and definitely very engaging. Ex Libris looks good, plays well. Definitely a good game and one that I would recommend. If you didn't pick up your copy of Django 2017, well, look for it. Probably there will be other copies available on the market soon. Maybe they'll reprint it soon, because I know this game has been successful. I think it will be successful. This is definitely a game that I'm happy to have in my collection, and I hope you'll consider adding it to your collection too.